Hello, this is Chris Barnes with Accellos iJump. I'm pleased to invest the next 30-40 minutes with you this afternoon to talk about the business case for warehouse management systems, or you may also understand it as ROI, return on investment. What we're going to talk about is more of a high level, the concepts and the areas that you might consider if you're asked to justify the investment in warehouse management system technology for your business. So this will be something that maybe you can take back and tailor to your specific business, your specific projects. The agenda that we're going to cover, I want to talk about first, why would you have a WMS, just at a high level. Then we'll drill down into what are the WMS value drivers, and then talk about some possible other considerations specifically around project management and change management. Just to start off, in the mid 90s to mid 2000s, WMS was considered a competitive advantage, meaning if you did not have warehouse management technology in your business, you may be losing customers or losing opportunities. However, as the industry has evolved, it's probably 20-25 years old now. WMS is considered, especially by some executives, to be a cost of doing business. Just today, I'm talking with a prospect around justification for the system, and the chief operating officer said, well, you know, it's really not a question of justification for buying it. It's a question of what happens if we don't have it. So that's kind of where you might be in your company as well. So just think about that. It will give you competitive advantage, but also if you don't have technology in the warehouse today, maybe you might be losing out on business. So from a scoping standpoint on your warehouse side, you know, the first question should probably be, am I really large enough to really invest in the technology? Will I have the benefits? There are various high-level characteristics that you should consider. One would be if your order volumes are going up, maybe that's a characteristic that you could benefit. If your inventory value overall is rising at a faster rate than your sales, maybe that's an indication that you might need WMS. If your customer service levels are dropping because you can't fulfill orders and respond to order demand in time, that's another indicator. If your inventory or your order accuracies are dropping overall, and what we're seeing now with a lot of customers is if your compliance costs are going up, meaning if you're shipping to Amazons or some of the big box retailers, they have very specific compliance labeling requirements, and if you can't meet those, you will become a profit center for them. So those are some of the things you might consider. From a physical characteristic standpoint, if you have roughly 30,000 square feet, again, these are just ballpark rule of thumb. If you have roughly 10 full-time equivalents or FTEs working in your warehouse, maybe if you have 5 active dock doors, or if you have, you know, at least or greater than 5,000 SKUs. And something else we're seeing a lot of for justifying systems is if you have specific lot and or serial number control characteristics. So if you find yourself kind of in that realm of an operating facility, maybe you could be at a good size for investing in the technology. Also, looking at some of the measures that you might be able to achieve from investing in technology. I'm not saying these will be specific to your operations. Everything's different. If you ask a consultant what time it is, they'll tell you to give them your watch, and they'll tell you. It's kind of what we have here. These are just high-level metrics, high-level benchmarks that you should be considering. If you're not achieving these, maybe it could be because you don't have investments in the technology. But this report is DC Metrics report. It comes out from a professional association in North America called Warehousing Education Research Council. And I just saw they came out with their 2014 report. But it talks about some of the top 10 metrics that different companies in a survey are achieving and focusing in on. And then they break it down by, of those that responded, what are the best practices metrics they're achieving, and then what are the median metrics. So just keep in mind, I'm not suggesting these specific metrics for your operation without understanding your business, but these could be some of the things that you might start measuring. And if you're not achieving these goals, maybe it could be because you don't have WMS in place. As we talk about the investments, ROI has two components. It's an investment side, and it's a cash investment side, and it's a cash savings side. So the key thing is don't get greedy, don't overcommit. If you're working with your management on trying to justify systems, try to be somewhat cautious and not promise the world. WMS can do a lot of things, but there's also a lot of things that it cannot do. We're going to be talking about numbers. I enjoy numbers and looking at different things. If you're trying to be creative with numbers, let's take a look at this one. It's more for fun. 111,111,111 squared equals 123,456,789,876,54321, which is very palindromic in my view. Now we're going to look at some of I've categorized the benefits between tangible, hard dollar savings, and intangible, or the things that are soft dollars and things that maybe you may have a tough time selling to your management team. So as you start thinking about how am I going to justify, what are my savings going to be, also start thinking about, will these savings be viewed favorably by management? So we'll talk about these characteristics from a tangible side first and then an intangible side. So some of the key benefits that you'll realize are improved inventory accuracies. And this comes from, I would expect with the warehouse management system, you'd have at least 99.9% plus inventory record accuracies in your warehouse, which are then going to subsequently drive process improvements around several other things. But you've got real-time and accurate inventory in the warehouse. That's going to mean, I know we have a lot of customers in the wholesale distribution business. They have customer service representatives. They're always trying to figure out what's the status of an order. And I see a lot of times people, without warehouse management system visibility into the warehouse, customer service representatives spend a lot of time walking around the warehouse trying to track down an order, so then they can in turn call their customers and explain to them the status of an order. With real-time and accurate inventory records and updates in the warehouse, that's a time savings. Cost of inaccurate inventory in the warehouse can lead to several less than best practices, such as poor buying practices. If your purchasing department's not confident in the inventory levels in the warehouse, they're probably going to buy extra to overcompensate. You might have processing delays if your operators are going to pick locations to pick items, and the right quantity's not there or the wrong parts. That's going to result in longer order processing time, which could mean delays for getting product shipped out. And with delays in processing, sometimes you're going to lose sales if customers don't want to wait, if customers don't want to deal with back orders, if you can't satisfy their requests within 24 hours because you have poor inventory record accuracies, they may just choose to go on to the next vendor. And overall, what you'll end up with is excess inventories in the warehouse, which again creates an additional cost on the balance sheet that you don't necessarily need. And then from a productivity standpoint, your operators are going to be less effective and less efficient because they're spending a lot of times, walking around the warehouse looking for product that probably should be in the right locations, but not necessarily is. And then you may also have increased freight costs from a shipping standpoint. If you have to expedite orders because you couldn't get them shipped out in time, that could result in, again, in the tangible benefits of higher freight costs. Also, from another big benefit, and it's a very tangible benefit, this is probably going to be 50+% of your project benefit, depending on how you position it and depending on how you're running today, is improved labor productivity. So your people are going to become more efficient across the board. What I can say, just again at a general school of thumb, is reduced labor costs can be achieved by up to 20 to 30%. So that means you can actually process more orders with the same amount of people, or you may also start looking at repositioning people within your operations. But you can start doing things around adding value to different processes. You can the direct benefit's going to be online reports, and you can also see system suggested benefits. But the key thing is you should really take a look at what your current productivity is today, specifically from a peak labor standpoint, and see how much that can improve. You'll also see benefits around receiving labor, possibly material handling or cycle counting labor, but that's really where your biggest benefit's going to come from, is the picking efficiency side. So keep that in mind. That's a big benefit. And also, as you start looking at how you're processing things in the warehouse today, if you're in a paper-based environment, that means you've got to take time to record things on a piece of paper. If you're like me, the information is generally not legible. You've got to store the paper. You've got to move the paper around. Sometimes it gets lost in warehouses that have wind blowing. And then there's also the administrative side of having to update systems manually by typing data in. That's a big benefit that can oftentimes be eliminated, again, or repositioned if you implement a real-time warehouse management system. So just think about labor from the standpoint of direct labor and administrative labor savings. So from a labor standpoint, we typically, again, look at the picking side of the equation. because of some research done. Typically, order picking consumes up to or more than 50% of the labor of the budget component in a warehouse. And if you take a look at your budget, you probably find that to be very similar. So whatever we can do to improve order picking efficiencies, it's going to have a direct impact on the bottom line. If you take a bigger picture look at the order picking side, what consumes a majority of a picker's time? Again, it's just general rules of thumb. Typically, it's going to be 55+% is going to be in traveling time. So whatever we can do to eliminate an operator's need to travel on a pick tour, that's going to have a direct impact on the labor savings side. So what I can see here is if you can reduce inventory search time by 50 to 100% by having accurate inventory record accuracy, inventory records that are up to date and current, that's going to eliminate their searching time. It's going to eliminate them having to walk back and forth because they can't find things. What I found as a general rule of thumb is it takes 4 times as long to pick an order that's not there than it does to pick it if it's there. I mean, if you think about it, what happens? The operator goes out, goes to a bin, and expects to pick something. It's not there. What do? They stop. They have to think. They have to look at the paper. They look around in bins adjacent. They look behind the pallet. They start looking for the inventory in other places. That's just an efficiency drag. And they're probably going to call the supervisor. The supervisor's got to come out, and that's just going to create extra drag on the budget. So whatever we can do to improve inventory record accuracy, it's going to reduce the search time, and that's going to be a direct benefit. Next tangible benefit that I see, typically a 15 to 30% improvement, is inventory reductions. But the question is, can inventory really be reduced? That's going to be up to you. I caution you, this can be a slippery slope in terms of savings because, as I mentioned today, I was talking to a prospect yesterday. They're going to implement a new ERP system, and part of the return on investment for the ERP system is reduced inventories. Well, if you come in as a warehouse project manager trying to justify WMS based off of reduced inventory, there's going to be some double dipping there, and it's going to raise some red flags. So I just caution you. You can reduce inventories through implementing WMS, but if other projects have already taken that as a benefit, maybe it won't be so much so for you. But let's just look. If you have some of the things you can't control in your warehouse is demand variability. So if you have a lot of seasonality, if there are lead times, if things coming in from Asia and they take a long time to get here, you maybe don't have so much control over how much inventory you have. Maybe purchasing gets, quantity breaks for lot sizing, so it really doesn't have much control. But, just keep those things in mind. You may not be able to reduce inventory, but overall, with improved inventory record accuracy, you should be able to have somewhat of an impact there. But again, I caution you, it's possible, just be careful. If you do reduce inventory, there are different types of savings that you can claim. One is the one-time benefit of reducing the working capital benefit. So there's inventory you take off the books, you can put that money to use across the business. And then there's also an ongoing benefit of a reduced carrying cost. Now, carrying cost is typically going to be driven by people in your financial organization. It's going to be a number that's dictated by corporate. But if you can say I'm going to reduce inventory by 20% across the board, that will have an overall long-term effect on your carrying costs. So if you want to claim carrying costs as a benefit, just for your reference, there are some things that a warehouse management system can impact on a carrying cost perspective. So if you have less inventory, you're going to have less capital cost investment. You're probably going to have less insurance and taxes as well, and those are all going to impact the service costs and the capital costs. Also, some other things. If you have third-party storage today outside warehouses, you may be able to eliminate those warehouses because you have a more efficient warehouse than the one that you own. So that just getting rid of those lease costs may have an impact on storage and space costs as well. And then also, if you're able to have more accurate inventory records in the warehouse, you're probably going to be able to minimize your obsolescence and then reduce your inventory risk costs. So those are the components that go into carrying costs. You should probably talk to your financial people, specifically how they're calculating it, but those would be things that you might consider. Also, if you can help improve your inventory turns, every financial person anywhere is really interested in inventory turns and optimizing inventory movement. Probably the same with yours. So if you can actually turn inventory better, you're going to be through improved inventory record accuracies. That's going to have a direct impact on your bottom line. So if you look here, if your inventory turns are two per year or 2 per measure, you might be around 6x for carrying cost. If you can improve that up to 6 turns per year, that's going to obviously reduce your carrying costs and have a dramatic impact on your finances. Again, but just keep in mind those are things that you probably should work with your financial team to help justify. Also, by putting in typical warehousing management system best practices, specifically around cycle counting, you can possibly eliminate the need to perform a physical inventory count. A lot of companies are doing that. A lot of times, if you're lucky, you can do it over a weekend, maybe a long weekend. If you're unfortunate, you're probably doing it, 3 or 4 days every quarter, and that just adds to cost. So there's some significant disadvantages of doing a physical inventory count. It has an impact on your balance sheets, and financial people typically don't like to make big adjustments. You have to shut down your facility. So again, if you can quantify what that impact is to your business, you're not shipping orders out to customers. And typically, you may have to hire external people to come in on a temp job to do this, or you may also have to pay overtime to work on the weekends. I remember when I was an industrial engineer, people asking me to come in and help with the physical inventory. I didn't know anything about the warehouse at the time, and they were actually, paying me to do it. So you probably don't have the best resources there. And then you're also going to be experiencing delayed shipments if it's not well planned. And then there's obviously also the additional cost of having to pay for food, pay for donuts, pay for pizza just to get people to come in over the long weekends. So if you can eliminate the physical inventory count process through an effective cycle counting program, that will be a tremendous benefit. Now, I've seen it can be anywhere from $75,000 to $100,000 U.S. savings per year. You can also see significant improvements in shipping accuracy. Again, very much like inventory record accuracies, you should expect 99.9+% customer service levels and shipping accuracy, because the warehouse management system is going to help you get it right the first time. As you're picking things to a specific carton, ASN data is being built, and there's very little chance for items to be picked into the wrong cartons and misshipped. So that's really where the biggest benefit is going to come from. And if you can quantify what a misshipment is to your customers, that's going to be something you can kind of come in and help quantify. If you're at 5% misshipments now, and it's $200 per misshipment, what's the benefit going to be if you can get it down to 1%? If you're being penalized for your misshipments, again, as I mentioned, customer compliance issues. Sometimes you've got specific delivery time frames you need to meet. If you don't meet those, you're going to be charged back. And you may be losing business because of poor customer service levels or shipping the wrong items to customers. The good thing is, the positive side, or the best benefit, the best thing you can realize is if you ship the wrong item to a customer, they'll call you and tell you and ship it back. Probably what's going to happen is they may not even call you and tell you. They'll just tell you they didn't get what they ordered, and they'll probably keep what you sent them before. So improved shipping accuracies can be a tangible benefit as well. Something else that's a possible benefit is if you're inefficient in your space utilization in the warehouse, improved record accuracies, improved zone management, improved efficiencies across the board are going to result in improved space utilization. So you may be able to squeeze more inventory, more productive inventory into the same amount of space that you have today. But I caution you today, this is really going to be a step function, meaning if I can eliminate one, or if I can improve the efficiency of one bin location or eliminate one rack section, that's really not going to impact my warehouse because I still have to contain that space. If I can eliminate the racks in a whole aisle, that's a different process. That's a different consideration because maybe I can then outsource that or sublease that specific aisle to someone else. So keep in mind it's going to be more of a step function. The better space utilization may lead the need for a facility expansion. So if you are busting at the seams, which I know every warehouse manager thinks they are, if you can improve your space utilization, you could possibly avoid an expansion into another space. And re-warehousing can help free space by consolidating partial loads. So what I like to do is walk through warehouses, at first glance and take a look at all the bin locations and see how full are they. If you can do a quick query and say, is it 100% full, 75, 50, or 25% full, and just get an idea for how full each bin location is. On average, it might be 50% full, but if you go through your warehouse and you see a lot of things that are 25% full, or there's a lot of space above a pallet that has shrink wrap on it, that's probably a good indication that space is too big for this specific size of items stored in that location. And then better planning and SKU information will allow you for using different location sizes, as I mentioned before. I like to do an analysis called cube volume movement. meaning how quickly is that inventory turning through my facility and how big is each item, and that's going to give me the cube requirement for my bin locations. Once I know the cube requirement for my bin locations, I can then start effectively slotting based off of how much space needs to be dedicated to that specific bin. Not every bin location needs to be the same, and that's typically what I see with new or inexperienced warehouse managers. They think every bin location has to be the same size and standard, when that's not necessarily true. If you can have varied bin location sizes, you'll be able to get more inventory into your warehouse. Some other tangible benefits that you might consider would be you can increase your sales. If you're able to take on new product lines or satisfy customer demands, maybe you're going to become their favorite vendor. If you have demurrage charges associated to your carriers, maybe they don't like waiting at the dock, and you're going to be charged if they have to wait excessive time. If you're doing a lot of expediting of orders, if you go out and you can't find inventory, you got to get it expedited. It might be in your yard. You got to get it expedited in through receiving into the warehouse just to get it shipped out. That's all extra cost. Again, if you're working in a paper environment today, maybe we can go paperless and achieve the benefits of not having to manage all that paper and actually store and file it. So on the intangible benefits, there are things that you can benefit from, but I caution you here. More is not necessarily always better, especially from a benefits and a savings standpoint. You can claim these benefits, but if they're not received by management, you may be in trouble. So just to give you an example of where more is not always better, you can see some things here. The Pythagorean theorem is 24 words. The 10 Commandments is 179 words. The Gettysburg Address was 286 words. And the U.S. government regulation on the sale of cabbage was 26,900 words. And I'll leave it to you to determine which one of those documents has more impact on your life. So more is not necessarily always better. So some of the intangible benefits, you're obviously going to see reduced errors. So this is typically done through data collection capabilities. It's forcing accuracy and self-checking, typically through like a picking process. If you're scanning a specific item and then you scan a specific carton, that's going to pretty much be a guarantee that the right item is in the right carton. And data entry and key punch errors are going to be eliminated. Typically, a key punch error occurs about every 100 or 300 keystrokes. But with real-time data collection and scanning, there's typically one misread per every 1 million scans, and it's probably even better than that today. So data collection through radio frequency and scanning is going to be much more efficient. Also, customer service impacts. You can probably improve your customer service levels, again, by improving your shipping efficiencies. So it's good to understand where it can impact. Excuse me. So if your orders are shipped on schedule, if they're on time, if you have the right documentation, all those things impact customer service levels. So whatever you can do to improve any of those areas, that's going to have a direct benefit to your business. But again, customer service levels are sometimes difficult. They're kind of like Jell-O. They're very difficult to hold on to and grasp. Also, I like warehouse management systems because it gives you, and specifically Accellos One Warehouse gives you real-time visibility into business analytics. So we've got key performance indicators, we've got real-time reports and dashboards that give managers and supervisors the ability to look into the current performance of the warehouse and find out exactly what's going on. If it's number of shipments, if it's how much you're spending with UPS versus FedEx, or if it's the labor efficiency in picking, you can quickly drill down into specific KPIs through dashboards offered through the warehouse management system. That's going to help you manage your warehouse proactively versus reactively. Also, from a workload planning standpoint, we have tools around wave management and allocations management that basically ensures the right level of inventory is in the pick bins before operators are sent out, as I mentioned to you earlier. It takes 4 times as long to pick something that's not there than it does to pick it if it's there. Allocations process kind of ensures that the inventory is going to be there. And then the wave management process basically puts orders into manageable workloads that can then be distributed to the floor. If you don't have a good wave management process, you're typically releasing every order to the floor either in a large batch or as they come down, and that just creates inconsistencies in the balance of the flow through the warehouse. So it can help you eliminate bottlenecks. And one of the things we also have is we have transactions recording. So everything that happens in the warehouse, it's done through the scanning or it's done through the workstation is recorded, and you can then go back and do audit trails around what happened and why, and specifically who was associated to it. Something else that I like, but it's sometimes difficult to quantify, and so it's intangible, is you can start taking on more value-added services, whether it's creating specific store shelf packs, or it's creating end-of-aisle type of packs. Those might be some things that you can do better, that you can do with warehouse technology. If you're being asked to do postponement strategies, meaning taking in something that's generic and making it specific to a customer, that's a value-added type of service. Those might be supported by warehouse management systems. Cross-docking is one that I really think is a benefit, especially if you're dealing with a lot of back orders. So it allows you to receive an item if there's a back order open for that item as it's received. Then you can actually take it and move it across the dock to an outbound order and associate that to an order without having to put it away into storage and incur all the associated material handling. You have improved supply chain visibility, as I've said before, with your KPIs, your business analytics, and your ability to go in and see the real-time system updates. You're going to have a more visible, your warehouse is going to be a more visible part of your supply chain overall. And again, it doesn't become a black hole. As I mentioned earlier, customer service representatives can then actually see what's going on in the warehouse. And we can also have supply chain event management or alerts. So if you're waiting on a specific receipt of a specific item, and it happens in the warehouse as soon as the receipt is confirmed, you might get a message sent off, an email, a text message or something to someone's phone that says, hey, this specific item has been received. Or if you ship an item to a specific customer, you can also automatically generate and make sure those messages are getting sent out. So that's a benefit as well. Some of the other things, intangible, is shared support. If you have multiple warehouses, in the United States, it's common for companies to have maybe one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. You can begin to standardize your processes, and I call that the McDonald's effect. So what you're doing in your warehouse in Ontario, California, if that's best practices, you can also maybe do the same thing in Miami, Florida, for example. It's just a matter of standardizing and having consistent processes. Also, employee satisfaction. Sometimes employees, probably a lot of times your employees now in the warehouse, they're probably already technology and computer fluent. So by having them work with technology in the warehouse, they're probably going to be a little bit happier. Orders tend to be misplaced less frequently with the warehouse technology because you know where everything is. Order cycle times can shrink, meaning you can commit to your 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock delivery times. And also user networking. For example, Accellos has an annual conference where you can go and you can share best practices and talk about things with the other users across the board. So those are things that I think are benefits that may just be difficult to justify. So what I did then is I took a look at some of the benefits, the intangible versus the tangible. I kind of characterized those, and then I said, based on those, what do I think is going to be management's responsiveness? And I started charting those. So obviously, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, labor savings is going to be a very tangible benefit. And if you look on the left-hand column, management's going to be very responsive to understanding that as a benefit. Visibility, for example, it's kind of an intangible benefit, but I think that is something that management will be very receptive to understanding. It's going to give them more information. Then you can start looking at type 2 category, the user group thing that I mentioned before. It's a quasi intangible benefit, but management may not be very responsive to that, so it kind of ranks down a little bit lower. Paperwork savings is very tangible, but again, management may not see that as a big benefit. So you can kind of start categorizing these and determining how you can best position them on your business case. And then employee satisfaction, misplaced orders, those types of things. Those are typically intangible benefits, and they're not going to be well received by management. But again, if you need some qualitative qualifiers in your business case, those could be things to consider as well. Another thing that you can use, I would typically encourage customers to go through their financial organization to look at any cost-benefit tools that are available. But this is an example of a DuPont analysis that talks about if you really want to sell any technology solution, you really should focus on shareholder value creation. And you can impact shareholder value creation through several value levers in the warehouse. And those would be things like increasing your order volumes. If you can increase order volumes, that's going to have a direct impact on increasing your gross profits. Some other examples, if you can reduce your freight and indirect labor costs, if you can reduce customer service and order management costs, that's going to reduce your costs overall and have an impact on shareholder value. And then down on improving capital costs and allocation, reducing work in process and finished goods inventories, that's obviously going to have a direct impact on shareholder value creation. So this might be a tool to help you think about how am I actually going to quantify these savings and present them to management. From a change management standpoint, it's also very important, and I encourage you to start doing this early, is managing your executives' expectations around what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. It's a good thing to say, yeah, we're going to come in and save $500,000 a year. The question is, when is that savings going to occur? Typically, you can see if you're working on a project, you start out, everybody gets excited, they come in, the project goes live, and typically what happens is then your performance tends to drop off right after the project goes live. And this is indicative of any type of technology project, just because there's change, people are trying to understand what's going on. Over time, the people become comfortable with the system, and they get back up to a level C where there are improvements, and then there are ongoing improvements thereafter. What you can do from engaging early with your teams, you can increase the speed of adoption, so you can minimize how long it's going to take to get up to productive speed. You can minimize that drop-off in performance of B, and then you can also obviously get your team up to speed quicker and with reduced drop-off in performance by some proactive change management strategies. So I'm not going to offer those here today. I just wanted to encourage you to think about those things as you're positioning your projects. Just a little bit about Accellos. Our end-to-end supply chain solutions are tailored towards specific small to medium-sized businesses. We offer everything that enables an efficient warehouse management system, from receiving, picking. I talked about cycle counting. There's also things on the periphery that we provide, from appointment scheduling, document imaging. So there's quite a full solution there. When we also get involved in the supply chain intelligence and the event notification. So there's a full solution offering around all your warehouse needs. It's just I encourage customers to start with the basics. And then, where does Accellos fit within the spectrum of what's available today? There are solutions at the low end that are basically, barcoding or increasing the ability to collect data with RF scanners. I call that basically paving the cow paths. You may be able to do things faster. You just might be doing the wrong things faster. And those are more for smaller facilities. There's a tier 1 type of enterprise solution that may have, 20, 30, 40, 50 warehouses that need an enterprise type of solution. Again, those are really more geared towards the higher end 200 plus user warehouses. But really where Accellos One Warehouse fits in, it's sold on a value-based process. So if you don't need advanced putaways or advanced replenishments, you don't necessarily have to buy those. We really focus on adding high functionality for a good value, and we're targeting the 10 to 250 type of facilities. So that just gives you an idea of kind of where we would fit and if it may be a good fit for you. Nick, that's all I have today. I don't know if you can hear me on the audio or if we can hear you, but I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time. I know we only went about 40 minutes today, so nobody ever complains about getting out early. But I hope it was a good use of your time. If you have any questions, reach out to us and ask away.